Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty, and today we're going to be starting a new mini-series called Classic Patterns in Procreate, where we'll eventually be working our way through all these patterns here over the coming weeks. And today we're going to be starting off with this diagonal stripe pattern here. Stripes are a very classic and easy pattern to make in Procreate, but diagonal stripes can be a bit trickier. I used to use a relatively complex method for making them in Procreate, which I've shown in a previous tutorial, and I actually felt a bit silly for previously having overthought the whole thing way too much when I came up with the easier way I'm going to show you today. I was playing around with some different geometric patterns and experimenting with rotating patterns. I realised that my beloved diamond method, where we flip the square repeat 45 degrees and repeat patterns in a diamond formation, could be used to rotate entire finished pattern tiles and repeat them at a 45-degree angle. It sounds complicated, but we'll get there in baby steps, so don't worry. You don't need any drawing for this tutorial. We'll be making the whole thing with filled shapes, a bit of maths, and some clever use of the snapping features in Procreate. This is a beginner level tutorial as long as you can be accurate with your snapping. If you're familiar with the basics of Procreate, you know how repeat patterns work and are precise with your snapping, then you shouldn't have any trouble. As we're working, if you find your layers aren't lining up properly, then just take it back a few steps and try again, paying closer attention to the snapping. And before we go any further, and before you tell me in the comments, yes, I know Procreate isn't necessarily the best software to use for geometric patterns, and you could and maybe should absolutely use vector-based software like Affinity Designer or Adobe Illustrator to make your geometric patterns. But in case you hadn't noticed by now, I am a bit of a pattern nerd, and I love the challenge of making something work in Procreate and pushing the boundaries of what we can do with it. If the only drawing software that you use or have is Procreate, then you don't have to miss out on being able to add a few geometric blender patterns to your collections. I'm going to put all the measurements and dimensions in the description, and if you want to use the exact same colour palette as I'm going to be using today, this one here, that one is over in the Pattern Maker's Toolkit for you. So let's get started. We'll come back out into our gallery, and we're going to start with a 3600 pixel square canvas. So we'll add a new canvas from up here. If you've previously made a canvas this size, it will be down at the bottom. I've got this preset up here. If you don't already have one this size, you can create a new one by entering 3600 for the width and height. DPI you want as 300, and then you can click create. I'm going to cancel this and use the one that I already have here. So the first thing I'm going to do is make the background colour a nice dark contrasting colour so that we can see if there's any mistakes, that dark will show through. So you can either make your stripes by drawing them freehand with a brush like the airbrush. You can use the hard airbrush here, that has nice solid edges on it. If you want a random look, that's a good one to use. And then if you want to draw your stripes in freehand, you come up to Actions, go to Canvas, turn the drawing guide on, and then make this layer Drawing Assist, and then you will only be able to draw in straight lines. So that's a way of drawing stripes if you just want random ones and just any old colour, any old placement. That's how you can draw stripes in. Any stripes you draw in this way will repeat seamlessly because they've gone perfectly from edge to edge. But what we want to do is have something a bit more uniform and a bit more spaced and be specific with our stripes. So I'm going to clear this layer. I'm going to turn the drawing guide off because we don't need that, and I'm also going to turn Drawing Assist off. So I'm going to start by filling this empty layer with my first colour. So I'm going to go for this pink colour here, tap on the layer and tap Fill Layer. Then I'm going to tap Transform. I'm going to change my interpolation method to Nearest Neighbour for this part, and I'm going to tap on this node here. I'm going to uncheck the ratio, and I want to make the height for this 600 pixels. Then I'm going to tap up here again to transform it, and with snapping and magnetics on and distance and velocity all the way up, I'm going to centre this on the canvas. You'll see an orange line across the middle there, and then you know it's centred. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer, alpha lock it by swiping right with 2 fingers, and I'm going to use this light grey colour to fill that layer. Then I'm going to duplicate this pink layer, I'm going to drag it above this one. I'm going to tap Transform, tap on the node again and uncheck the ratio, and I'm going to make the height of this one 200 pixels. Then I'm going to centre it on the canvas again, and you'll get an orange line down the middle and an orange line across the middle horizontally there as well. Then I'm going to duplicate this light grey one again, bring that one up to the top, tap to transform again, and I'm going to uncheck the ratio and make the height of this 100 pixels. And then center it on the canvas again. And when we center that, we're looking out for that orange line crossing vertically and horizontally. So then these top three, I'm going to group these together. And then we've got the bottom pink one underneath. I'm going to group both of those together, so the group and the layer, swipe right on those and group. Then the one that is in the group here, I'm going to tap on that one and snap it up to the top of the canvas here, and you want to have an orange line going around the outside there. And this pink one, we can drag and snap up there, and that will snap to the edges of the canvas, so you'll have an orange line there, and you'll have a blue line to show it's snapping to this box. Now I'm going to duplicate this group and I'm going to flatten a copy. We'll keep this one underneath with all the layers in case we want to go back and correct things if we spot a mistake, or if we want to change the colours, but for now we'll just work with this flattened one. So I'm going to duplicate this, tap transform, and we're going to snap it down to this one. It's going to snap to the centre of the canvas. The edges, you'll have orange lines there, and you'll have a blue line to show that it's snapped to the bottom of this one. You can also zoom in to the edges here and just pan up and down and make sure you can't see any of that darker blue colour, either at the edges or in between these stripes. And then you can duplicate this one again and snap it down to the bottom there. And you should have orange lines around the edges, the bottom, and a blue line across here to show it's snapping to that. And again, zoom in and make sure you don't have any of those blue gaps there. So then that is our stripes going horizontally. If you want to make a horizontal stripe pattern tile, you could export this, and using this snapping method where you fill a layer, resize the stripes, this is a really good way of getting perfect evenly spaced stripes in Procreate. But what we want to do is have this rotating like this way. So we're going to do that by flattening these three together, tap transform, and then we want to change our interpolation method down here to bicubic now. And we're going to rotate it 45 degrees, and we're going to tap on fit to canvas. So now we have our pattern tile here, and we can repeat this, still going this way down here, that way up there, and that way up there, and that way down this way. And the way we do that is, if we tap this layer and tap up here, you'll see the dimensions are now 3600 pixels because we did fit to canvas. So we can duplicate, tap transform, we know we've got the whole canvas, so we can snap it down by exactly halfway to the bottom and halfway over to the side here, and you'll see orange lines there, and you know it's snapped into the corner. Then you can duplicate this bottom layer again, drag it up and across, and you'll see those orange lines there. Duplicate again, snap it up into this corner. You want to be looking out for those orange lines every time you do this. And then again, down into this corner here. And there's one thing that I do need to point out to you when you rotate a pattern like this and then repeat it in the corners, is that when you zoom in down here, you are going to see this little gap down there. And that's the background colour showing through. If I turn that off, you can see that. And that's because when we turned it around 45 degrees and resized it, you lose a little bit of image quality. The edge pixels become semi-transparent, and there's nothing we can do about that. But there is a way to fix it. So I'm going to pinch all of these together, and then I'm going to duplicate this layer, and keep an eye on the line as I do it. I'm going to duplicate it, pinch those and merge them together. And because these pixels here is not a complete gap, they're semi-transparent, every time we duplicate, we're stacking more of those on top of each other, and it eventually comes back up to full opacity. So I'm going to duplicate that again, merge those, and we'll just do that 3 times in total, and there you can see that gap has now gone. So yeah, rotating patterns this way isn't perfect, and you are always going to get that gap, but by stacking up the layers, you can knock that gap out, and it's almost like the perfect crime. So now we've got this tile, we can test this is repeating properly. So I'm going to tap up here. I'm going to drag this node up to the middle of the canvas until that says 1800 pixels there. Then I'm going to duplicate it, transform it again, and snap it over to here. And then we can zoom in here where these meet up and just check that where they meet up, First of all, check that this is a continual line there. We haven't got any bits where the diagonal goes off there, and also that you don't have any blue gap down the middle there. That's looking good, so we can merge those together, duplicate that, and then snap this down to the bottom there. And then you need to do that with the top seam here. Just pan across there, make sure that that carries along there, and that's looking okay. So that is this pattern in repeat and our diagonal stripe pattern. I hope you've enjoyed watching this tutorial, and if you have a go at making this pattern and you share it on Cara, then don't forget to tag me at bekkiflaherty so I can see it. If you love making geometric patterns like this, then you'll love the new Skillshare class I have coming soon, where I'll be showing you how to make all of these patterns in Procreate and going into lots of detail about how you can adapt the techniques, plus all the usual juicy, nerdy pattern tips I love to share along the way. As soon as I publish the class, I'll update the description with a link for it, and it will be a special link that will give you an extra 30 days for free when you join. Don't forget, if you want the colour palette that I use for this, you can get that over in the Pattern Makers Toolkit. The Pattern Makers Toolkit is kind of like a Patreon group, except it's free. You get access to all the resources in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website, including those I make for my Skillshare classes, early access to some of my YouTube tutorials and drawing prompts, discounts in my Etsy store, and one new freebie exclusively via email every month. And I only send out one email per month, I promise. Lastly, if you want to see more pattern tutorials like this every week, then don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you next time.